To those it may concern, we are present. We have been for a while and will be for years to come. We are a staple in the culture, and our imprint has been branded in the universe. We are as real as those who wish to experience us, and the longer we exist, the more powerful we become. The most difficult thing in the entire world is coming up with an original idea. Innovation requires time, trials and errors. It is no easy task, and it weighs heavy on the mind of the creator. And without the creator, innovation ceases to exist. Not too long ago, an idea was born, forged by many parts, maturing over time, birthing communities and families. Was it for the sole reason of entertainment? To fill the void where boredom lies dormant? Or does it now carry meaning, a greater purpose, greater than the creation of itself, to share perspective of otherworldly views, inspire those willing to ingest and digest a message, a catalyst that has the potential to change the lives of many? Quite possibly, it is used as a means of persuasion in order to carry out the ideals of the designer. Either way, they aren't going anywhere anytime soon. I'm of course talking about video games, their purpose, and most importantly, why people play them. When a human is born into the world, a package of needs and wants accompanies them through life, one being the desire to connect with others, which is why we are a very social species, welcoming groups of people with similar interests, ideas, and motivations. Everyone receives nourishment. A symbolic relationship keeps the tribe healthy, thus spawning fresh ideas, making innovation almost seamless, a thing that video games does perfectly. Being a so-called gamer is still in its infancy stages and wasn't considered of the norm until recently, the early 2000s. Non-gamers alike, however, are a big part of the gaming ecosystem. Everything started with them. Children and young adults going to arcades after school in the 70s, 80s, and 90s wouldn't have been considered gamers, just kids who play games. Galaga, Pac-Man, Space Invaders, Asteroids, all games that would have been played for hours on end through these archaic machines, while standing, mind you, paved the way for how we experience today's era of gaming. Those standing around waiting for their turn to play or compete against the opposing party eventually cultivated groups, and with the help of leaderboards, split the competitive from the casual. Being included amongst groups intentionally or unintentionally by games aids in that sense of belonging or desire for social needs, so much so that other forms of media pale in comparison to a well-developed video game. Whether they are actively replacing alternative forms of purpose-driven media is up for debate, as games in this day and age can be seen as interactive movies or graphic novels. However, there is one thing that is undeniably true. Genre growth for video games has seen an exponential uprising over the past few years. Roguelike or Souls-like, a genre that would have confused everyone if discussed back in the 90s, is now one of the most popular thanks to the Dark Souls series. Each genre caters to a specific type of gamer, which does two things. Further institutes the idea of gaming being able to form a community, while also installing a separate identity for a person to connect with. Are you a fan of compelling stories with interesting characters and detailed world building, kind of like Game of Thrones? Video games having story-rich narratives juxtapose fictional novels, offering the person visuals, music, voice acting, interaction, and anything else a book cannot. Or maybe you lean more towards hands-on craftsmanship and technique, which correlates well with the cooking genre for those in search of learning new recipes, perhaps spending their evening doing something they find relaxing, minus the monotony that comes with the real task. Speaking of real, let's talk about escapism. The most common use case for the existence of video games is to temporarily integrate into a fantasy, joining someone else's journey, fleeing the problems presented in everyday life, each session as blissful as the last, until eventually we are snapped back into reality. This isn't the most optimistic way of perceiving the medium, however. It devalues the importance gaming can bring to its audience, while also implying that life is this inescapable, dreadful experience, and admittedly may feel that way in some aspects. But gaming is meant to enhance the experience of life, providing new insights that the player may not be aware of at the time. Let's take Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons for example. Maybe you're an only child or someone who has never shared a brotherly bond with another person. Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons delivers that sense of reality to the player in the most dramatic way possible, and the gameplay design only aids in that sensation. You are responsible for the two protagonists, Naya and Nai, as they embark on a journey to find a medicine to heal their sickly father. Separate controls are used to operate each character, and as you'd imagine, this can be quite confusing in situations as it is meant to be. You are committing your focus to both characters at once to complete various tasks. As time progresses, that initial bond between the two characters transcends through the game into the player, making obstacles and challenges easier to complete further in the story. Responsibilities in the game do not rely solely on one character. For instance, Naya is a lot stronger than Nai, leaving him with the more heavy lifting objectives. In contrast, Nai is more nimble and small, which gives him the advantage of squeezing through areas or performing feats that fit his stature. The game doesn't inhabit the concept of brotherhood through level design alone, it's also done through storytelling. A particular detail in Nai's fear of water after witnessing his mother's death through drowning. In relation to the gameplay, Nai is unable to cross an area that is submerged in water without Naya. Upon completion of the game, the player now has an understanding of what it would feel like to not only have a companion, but a brother who is there to support, protect, and guide them in a way that no one else possibly could. Each new season introduces a new collective of gaming fans, raising the question, who is gaming actually for? A gain in this understanding is important. It helps in clearing the mist on the road, the mist being a large collective of those who refer to themselves as gamers, even though they might not be. Gaming obviously isn't some exclusive club congregated by the most gifted members of society. Just like any other form of media, it has its loyal fans, so it makes sense to define the group within the constraints that make it whole. Taking a look at some common characteristics amongst gamers, they tend to be analytical for interpreting and completing different objectives, dexterous for completing set objectives efficiently, and introverted so no one bothers them while they do it. Games offer many different types of problems to solve. It could be a simple puzzle, or maybe a series of obstacles hindering progression. That is a constant occurrence amongst all video games, and to break past each barrier presented, a methodical means of deciphering is an important skill to hone. Dexterity complements the analytical side of video games. Being able to break down a problem, construct a means of resolution, and then executing the strategy is only possible by incorporating both skills. As for being introverted, generally speaking, this entire process is not done in a group setting. Most of the time the person is alone figuring it all out in their head, which is why gamers tend to keep to themselves. Gaming is a very solace activity, and it's focused on those who enjoy the systems it entails. An average Joe who has never considered gaming as something they might enjoy would eventually give it up altogether. Popularity attracts the populace. When something new and exciting is brought into the mainstream, it's safe to assume the bandwagon is going to get a little heavy. Like mentioned before, game genres have grown over the years, which coincides with how large the industry is getting. Things such as genre, accessibility, culture, and anything else gaming contains, with time, funnels all the non-gamers out of the ecosystem. Video games aren't mindless entertainment. It would be irresponsible to think so. They've evolved into much more. They're a form of storytelling, a form of therapy, a way to connect with others and build relationships. If you don't believe me, take a look at Star Wars and try that with a video game.